one more here. Notice we've got 4 times, and in parentheses, y plus 9 squared minus 25 times x plus 6 squared equals 100. And again, how we know that this is again a hyperbola is we see a minus sign between the x squared and the y squared. However, there is something different with this one because we see what coming first? The y is first this time. So this is the first time that we're going to do an example where our hyperbola should open upwards and downwards because our major axis is now the y-axis because the y is coming first. However, there is still an issue. We have that the right-hand side's 100. We don't want that. We want a 1. So we're going to divide everything on both sides by 100 and make sure that we reduce as we go along. So the 4 over 100 reduces to 1 over 25. The next one, the 25, the 25 over 100 reduces to 1/4. And on the other side, we do have what we wanted. We have the 100 over 100 reducing to 1. Okay, so y comes first means y is the major axis, but a is still the major axis. So this is still my a squared is 25, which means my a is still 5. My b still goes for my minor axis. Again, remember, major and minor axis doesn't have anything to do with size with hyperbolas. It is all based on first and second. So my b squared here is 4. It's on my minor axis, means my b is actually, it's already squared, so b is 2. So remember with hyperbolas, we've already had our minus, so because the hyperbola has the minus in it, when we do our c squared, it actually has the plus, so c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Well, we just said a, which is the major axis, is 5, b, which is the minor axis, which is 2. So we get 5 squared, which is 25, plus 2 squared, which is 4. Then we need to add them up. Well, 25 plus 4 is going to give me 29. As a warning, that is your c squared, not your c. In order to find c, I still need to take the square root of both sides of the equation. That is not a pretty answer, but that is your answer. It gives you that c equals the square root of 29. We also have a center that is not 0 here. We should probably find our center if you haven't done so already. So remember that your center is based on whatever is going to go in with your y's and your x's. And in this case, let's see, what we have with our x's is a plus 6. Remember, because it's inside parentheses, when we pull it out, we're going to do the opposite. So we'll have a negative 6. Again, it was with our x's, so it'll be a minus 6 with our x's. Now let's look at our y's. Our y's have a plus 9. So again, when we pull it out, because it's inside parentheses, we'll switch signs. It will be a negative 9. It was with the y, so it's the y coordinate for your center. So our center is at negative 6, negative 9. And again, we're opening along the y-axis because the y's came first. So our graph is going to open up and down. So the thing that should be staying the same are the x's. The y should be the things that are changing because we're going to be moving up and down. So the x's, which were negative 6, should stay the same with the vertices and the foci because they're on the major axis. Well, how do we find the vertices on the y-axis then? Well, we take the y-axis for the center, which was negative 9, and we add or subtract the radius for the major axis, which we said was 5. That was our A was 5. So we'll add and subtract 5 to the negative 9. So adding 5 to the negative 9 gets us negative 4. Subtracting the 5 gets us negative 14. So let's see where those two vertices land. Again, we had our center was at, let's see, negative 6, negative 9. And then to do the vertices, we said that the major axis radius was A, which was 5, so we'll add and subtract 5. So you're going to go up 5 from negative 9, so you'll go to negative 4, and then you'll subtract 5 from negative 9, which would put you at negative 14. Those are your vertices. And your graph is going to open up and down from those two vertices, those 2 points. Okay. So now, after you have the vertices, let's see how we actually get the rest of the graph here. Well, you can get the foci from adding and subtracting the C to the center. Well, the C that we came up with was square root of 29. So we'll add and subtract that to the, where we were at the negative 9. So we'll add square root of 29. And that will put us a little bit inside the graph. And we'll subtract square root of 29 from the negative 9 here, and that will find our two foci. So that's how we're coming up with those 2 points for the foci here, is adding and subtracting the square root of 29. That's C that we came up with. Okay. Now we need our asymptotes in order to be able to draw the asymptotes. Let's come up with the equations, then we'll draw our box. Well, it's always going to be rise over run. Be careful. Your rise this time is your A, because your major axis was y. It's whatever's going to be your radius for your y's. Well, underneath the y's, you had the value 5 was squared. So your rise is 5. Okay, so your rise was 5 over your run was 2. Your radius for your x's was 2. So your slope is 5 halves. So you'll look at one with a positive slope of 5 halves, one with a negative slope with 5 halves. Now, we have a negative 6 as your x-coordinate for your center. Remember, because it's going inside, you'll actually do the opposite. You'll put a plus 6. Now, with the negative 9 where the center is, because it's going to go outside, it's going to be your shift up and down. It will stay the same, so we'll leave the negative 9 as is from the center. So there's our equation for our two asymptotes, is a plus or minus 5 over 2. That's our slope, our rise over run. And the plus 6 means it was shifted to the left 6. The minus 9 means it was shifted down 9 to make sure that it goes through that center at negative 6, negative 9. Now, if we actually want to graph it pretty straightforward, we'll start at the center and we'll build our box. Our box tells us that our A, which was 5, on the y-axis means we're going to go up and down 5 to make our box from the center, which means we'll be right where the vertices are to kind of start our box. So let's take a look at starting our box here at 5 up from the vertex. 5 up from the center to where our vertex is. That will start our box. And then what else? And then we also have to do the sides of our box, which was the B value. The B value was, let's see, the B was 2. So we're going to go only 2 on either side. So we're going to go 2 from where we were, which it's not going to be perfect. But there's our box then, is to make the rectangular shape from where those two sides meet. The B's and the A's to make a rectangle. Okay, so there's our rectangle. Then to draw your asymptotes, then what we'll do is we'll go through the center and we'll go through the diagonals on both sides to come up with our asymptotes of this rectangular box. So there's our asymptotes. Now you could just have them go through the center and then use your slope of rise over run, which is positive 5/2 would give you one line and a negative 5/2 would give you the other asymptote. That's fine too. And again, once you have your asymptotes, not until then can you actually graph your hyperbola. You'd start with your hyperbola being at the vertex and you'd say, okay, I'm going to get closer to each side of your asymptote. Again, I started with the one on the bottom. You could also start with the one on the top. It doesn't matter. Start with your vertex and again, get closer to both sides of your asymptote without actually touching. And again, I made sure that our graphs open up and down because y was our major axis because it came first.